Hello and welcome back to another video on the Wrestles Bay and to another edition of NXT Out, and the first episode of NXT this year, and it's a special one, New Year's Eve, or kind of like a TV pay-per-view, so lots going on, NXT title on the line and everything else. We kicked off with a quick recap of last year's biggest feuds before we saw Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams walk out to the ring, followed by Dynamite and Roderick Strong for their unification match. The match started off with Melo going for a submission move early on, but Roddy managed to counter it. Roderick then transitioned into a Boston Crab to hold before getting a near fall off Melo on the Olympic Slam. On the apron, Carmelo hit a big DDT before heading back to the ring. Melo got a kick to the face, but Roderick took him down. Melo nearly got the pin off a risky move, but Roddy kicked out. However, he managed to get up to the top rope and hit a leg drop to pick up the win and become the unified champion on NXT. And yeah, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Really fun match, and for me, definitely the right result. So yeah, this is a good start to the show. Ciampa and AJ Styles were watching backstage as New Year's Evil continued, and straight after the break, AJ Styles was out next on NXT and got on the mic and thanked the fans for supporting him for so long. He said that he had some regrets, and one of them was he never joined NXT. Styles said that he admired the passion that the NXT fans have for their brand, and he wasn't going to let guys like Grayson Waller take it away from it. Waller walked out and mocked AJ for losing on Raw and took credit for loss, saying AJ was too busy worrying about Waller last night. AJ challenged Waller to a match right there and then, but Grayson said no, he wants it to be the main event next week, and said he would embarrass AJ Styles. AJ and Grayson Waller ended up having a bit of a brawl, and Waller came out on top, but AJ got a Pele kick. Waller then dodged a phenomenal forearm. But yeah, good stuff, building out to the match next week. Really can't wait for it, it's going to be a solid match. Before backstage, Casey and Caden teamed up with Amari Miller and challenged Persia Potter and Indy Hartwell to a match. Persia and Indy asked Tiffany Stratton to join them in the match, but shot them down before we saw Whitney Chu taking a nap, and the Australian duo accepted them as their third partner. Before we got Imperium versus MSK and Riddle making his return to NXT. Riddle and MSK brought a DJ to a remix. The original Bros entrance music was on as they walked out to face Imperium. Marcel and Carter kicked off the match, and Nick was in control early on. Cartel got some big chops before MSK isolated Eichner and sent him back to the apron. Walter came in and wiped out both Carter and Lee before all of Imperium stepped aside and sent Riddle and MSK outside. Back after the break, Carter was taking a beating from Walter in the ring, but Imperium went around the ring and wiped out both his partners on the apron before they could make the tag. Riddle came back in finally and was hitting a barrage of kicks before Walter stopped that as he managed to hit MSK with a big move. Imperium then hit their combined finishes on Riddle for a near fall. However, the Raw superstar broke free once he was back up and made the tag to MSK, and they hit their finisher before Riddle got the floating bro to ensure the winning return. And yeah, this was really good. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Really solid return for Riddle. I enjoyed it. Joe Gacy and Harlan then expressed their interest in joining the upcasting Dusty Club and said that they would be ready to prove themselves worthy of the opportunity. We'd like to see them in there, definitely. Before Mandy Rose came to New Year's Evil in a helicopter for some reason, while still in her ring gear, before we headed out, Elektra Lopez was backstage and said that whoever wins the match between Santos Escobar and Jean Quinn, he would challenge. Before we did get the women's title match, Jade was wiped out instantly with a boot from Raquel, and the champ sent Gonzalez out of the ring. Raquel came back and nearly got rolled up by Jade before Mandy kicked into the steel steps, before Gonzalez broke up pins from Mandy first and then Jade before lifting both ladies and hitting a double Samoan drop. A kendo stick gun came into play during the commercials after Raquel beat Mandy with a weapon. Jade was threatening Gonzalez with it, but Mandy came in and wiped them out. Back after a break, Mandy got a near fall of Jade off a clothesline before Raquel lifted Jade and threw her out of the room with the young superstar taking a bad fall. Rose tried to escape, but Raquel dragged her back. Rose then took a steering Shinoga bomb, but Jade broke the pin with a dive. Raquel was mad and took Jade to the top rope. Jade tried to roll Rose up, but Mandy got an awkward roll up. Bit weird for the pin. Yeah, I don't know if that's slightly watched or not, but who knows. But yeah, on the whole, it was a decent enough match. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. For me, the right result. Mandy definitely deserves to keep the title for a while longer. The Crew brothers then had an encounter with MSK in the parking lot after Riddle left. Andre Chase was then out next on NXT, and he wanted to save the student who saved him from getting tossed off the roof. But yeah, before he could do that, basically what happened was Von Wagner interrupted, and as we know with Von Wagner and his new heelist raise, he probably wasn't in the best of moods, and that didn't result well for Andre Chase, you can probably guess. Wagner cut the promo and said, "I'm everything that you're not," and then attacked Andre Chase and wiped him out. He then attacked a random fan for some reason, and was thrown out of the arena. So yeah, that's nice. They then set a crowbar and a pole match for next week between Pete Dunne and Tony D'Angelo. That'll be fun. Before it was main event time, Tony Ciampa versus Bron Breakker. Breakker had the early advantage and Ciampa retreated from the ring. The champ then took control of the match and were unloaded with strikes in the corner before Bron went outside with a knee strike off the apron and took a springboard. And Ciampa then locked in a headlock and then brought Bron Breakker's back, but he was dropped by the bigger guy, unfortunately for Champs. Ciampa and Breakker then traded fists as the match continued. Breakker hit a big spine buster and a standing moonsault before Ciampa dropped him from the top rope. And Breakker then took a knee strike on the outside before Ciampa took a spear and the Frankensteiner for a near fall. The hold was broken before Ciampa ripped the mat off the concrete floor and tried to hit a move on it, but Breakker reversed and sent it through the announcer's desk. Ciampa got the fairy tale ending in the ring for another near fall, but Breakker locked in the legendary move, the Steiner recliner, for the win. And yeah, this was really good. Great to see Breakker finally come of age. Really solid match as well. So yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Can't wait to see where this goes. And yeah, just on the whole, an excellent match. And overall this week, NXT gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Yeah, to kick off the new year, this was a really, really great episode of NXT. A special, but all the matches delivered from top to bottom. New champions in the right places. Congrats, Bron Breakker. And yeah, some really fun stuff involving main roster stars. So yeah, on the whole, a brilliant episode of NXT. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. Thanks very much for watching. So like, share, subscribe. Let us know comments down below. Follow on to the link description below for daily wrestling news. And subscribe to our channel. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.